Honorable Agatha Arembe, Chairperson, Uganda Public Employees Union, one of the unions that recruit in the public sector, and we get our membership from government parastatals, with National Water and Sewage Corporation being one of our biggest branches. We are here to talk about gender-based violence, which has been amplified so much in this era of COVID, with several cases being reported. And if we look at Uganda cases have increased by 3,385 cases reported now annually. This increase has been due to the fact that during lockdown, people are spending more time at home. The economic situation of some people has also gone down for not receiving salaries, and there were so many other issues that were coming up. This gender-based violence is mostly experienced by women, the sexual harassment, but also men are also culprits. And we have noted that most cases, especially that are faced by men, are not reported because of fear of stigmatizing and victimization. So whereas some women come up, there are also other women who do not come up at all until they are identified or noted to have maybe physical wounds or something or change in behavior. This has affected our workplaces so much. We have seen increased cases of people going down with stress symptoms. We have seen people being absent from the workplace due to nursing injuries. We have seen people who have to be absent from work, which is affecting the productivity of the organization. All issues that are because of gender-based violence. And we have seen people being single partners, families breaking up constantly, and the burden is falling on the people who have to support the families. As the union, we are very concerned about these vices. Reason being, we have laws in Uganda on domestic violence. Some of these laws are like the Penal Code, it talks about violence. We have the Succession Act, which came in to make sure that some of these inequalities in the homes are solved. We had an amendment to the Employment Act. I think that was around April of 2020, which looked at issues of putting in place measures to curb domestic violence and also measures to recognize our domestic workers as formal workers. The government also has gone ahead to put in place a policy on gender-based violence, putting the responsibility of addressing issues of gender-based violence in the hands of the Ministry of Labour, Gender and Social Development. But the challenge here is, even with the structures that have been put in place because of the policy, this ministry is not funded. So there are no funds to address gender-based violence. Funds to the ministry, funds to the police departments that are there on family help and support, funds are not available to handle this. And very few people report. Another issue that we have seen here as workers is most people fail to report these cases, and sometimes they ignore until the cases have really amplified to a level of bringing out medical conditions like depression. So it's quite a challenge. What we need to do as trade unions, first of all, is to create awareness that gender-based violence should not be ignored, but should be addressed and given the due attention it brings. so that it doesn't affect our workers psychologically. Secondly, we also need to advocate for the ratification of Convention 190, which came in 2019. This convention has so many clauses that we can include in our own laws. Uh, Clauses like protection of victims, how they should be handled, and also issues on counseling, offering counseling services to the victims. I know that we have now introduced a toll free, the police has introduced a toll free line where victims can report but the cases, but there is a limitation on funds to investigate and people who are willing also to be witnesses. So these are the challenges that we are seeing. In the workplaces, although in our workplaces, National Water and Sewage Corporation, in our human resource manual, we have gone ahead to include a clause on harassment, but it's still so limited to sexual harassment. It focuses mainly on sexual harassment and leaves out other forms of harassment, the violence, bullying at the workplace, physical fights. Those are not clearly addressed. Even the channels of reporting are not clearly spelled out. Who do you report to, especially when the harasser is your supervisor or your boss? So those are some of the gaps that we are experiencing. Then also a clause on what action should be taken when someone is violated. What happened to the culprit? Are there penalties? Those ones don't come out clearly. So what that causes is there is no justice or there is delayed justice. So those are the gaps that we need to address as trade unions. We need to do a lot of lobbying to make sure that the convention is ratified, to make sure that it's domesticated into our laws, or also to lobby for specialized courts that can handle issues of violence and harassment. People who are informed of what to do, specialized police units, and also lawyers who can handle, and a court, especially like we have anti-corruption courts and so on. We should also have a court in violence and harassment because it's really affecting the moods and the morale of workers and even psychologically. I also want to emphasize that gender-based violence should not only look at the maybe the male and the female, the adult, but it should also put a lot of focus on the children because they get involved and meddled up in the actions of the adults. Even themselves are abused in their homes. They are abused, and this has led to also a lot of child early marriages and pregnancies, a vice that we should also avoid. This gender-based violence also affects the young children into adulthood. They grow up seeing parents fighting, and they grow up knowing that issue of fights, quarrels, abuses is a normal vice, and they bring these vices right to our workplaces. So as much as possible, our home environment should be a place of harmony and a place to address issues amicably because the effects end up being felt at the workplaces.